So, if you died tomorrow,
Hmm.
what would actually remain because you lived?
Oh man, jumping right in.
I know, right? It is a super heavy question, but I really want you to think about it for a second, because society basically trains us to measure our lives by our resumes.
Right, totally. It's all about what we acquired or, the titles we held.
Exactly. The wealth we amassed, maybe the square footage of the house we bought. We are just so obsessed with this idea of the self-made individual, building an empire entirely from scratch.
Yeah, but what if that entire narrative is just an illusion? Like, what if the ultimate measure of your life isn't what you gather for yourself, but what you leave behind in the minds and the habits of other people?
Which is such a massive shift. So welcome everyone to today's deep dive. If you've been following along with us, you know we are unpacking this massive framework known as the architecture of awareness.
And today is a big one.
It really is. Today we're looking at the culmination of this entire philosophy, the part dedicated to legacy and humanity. We are basically tearing down the myth of the blank slate.
Which is so needed, honestly.
Right. Because the truth is, when you are born, you are not handed a blank, crisp notebook. You are handed a manuscript that has been heavily drafted, scribbled over, and just heavily annotated by generations of people you have never even met.
Exactly. You are born into an inherited architecture, and that is really where this entire journey has to start. I mean, before we can talk about changing the world or leaving a massive legacy, we have to look at the raw materials we are handed at the starting line.
Yeah, the framework operates on this really fundamental premise. None of it begins as a blank page, but we are absolutely responsible for what happens to the manuscript next.
Right, and to make this tangible, an analogy kept coming to mind as I was pouring through the source material. Imagine your life isn't a new build.
Oh yeah, I like this.
Imagine you are moving into a historic house. This house has been in your family or your culture for generations. When you walk in, you look around and see this stunning, hand-carved, antique woodwork in the dining room.
Oh wow, yeah.
Right. And that woodwork represents the strengths, the resilience, the profound wisdom, and the healthy traditions of your ancestors. It's beautiful and it's yours.
But then, you go down into the basement,
Exactly. You go into the basement and the plumbing is just completely shot.
rusted out.
The pipes are rusting, there's black mold in the corner, the foundation is cracking. That basement represents the generational trauma. It represents the unspoken fears, the chronic anxieties, the prejudices, or, maybe the cycles of addiction that your family has just been passing down decade after decade.
It is such a brilliant way to conceptualize the 4 forms of inheritance that the framework outlines. Because we don't just inherit one thing, do we? We inherit a complex web of realities.
But we do. First, there is the biological inheritance. So that's your genetics, your physical health predispositions, your neurological baseline.
Basically, the actual bones of the house.
Precisely. Then you have your family inheritance. This is the psychological atmosphere you grew up in.
Like how love was expressed.
Exactly. Was it conditional? How was conflict handled? Did people yell, or did they just give each other the silent treatment for days? You absorb these habits and expectations without even realizing it.
And then the third one is cultural inheritance.
Right. The language you speak, the religious or philosophical paradigms you were steeped in, the socioeconomic and historical realities of your community. And the thing is, you don't choose any of these first 3.
Right. They're just given to you.
Yeah, biological, family, and cultural inheritances are entirely received. You have 0 say in the matter.
You didn't install the bad plumbing. It is objectively not your fault that the basement floods every time it rains. But, and I think this is the core tension of human existence according to this material, it is your house now.
Right. You live there.
You can't just stand in a flooded basement and yell at the ghosts of your great-grandparents. You don't have to burn the whole house down, but you absolutely are responsible for the renovations.
And that brings us perfectly to the 4th form of inheritance, which is the personal inheritance. This is the one you create. It is the sum of every choice you make in response to the first 3.
So you are a product of the past, but you are the architect of the future.
Which sounds incredibly empowering, but also, terrifying.
Very terrifying. So how do we actually do that? Well, the framework introduces this concept called the Generational Evolution Engine, or the GE. It's basically a mechanism for renovating your inheritance. But this is actually where I want to stop and push back on the material a bit.
Oh, really? Okay, let's hear it.
Because the very first stage of this engine is receive. And it specifically tells you to accept your inheritance with gratitude.
It does say that, yeah.
Okay, but let's be real here for a second. What if someone has inherited a legacy of severe abuse? Like Deep generational trauma, poverty, addiction. Telling someone whose basement is literally filled with toxic waste to start with gratitude sounds wildly out of touch.
I can totally see that.
It borders on toxic positivity, honestly. How does the framework justify demanding gratitude for a painful inheritance?
It's a very necessary pushback, because if you misinterpret this stage, it absolutely sounds like toxic positivity. But the framework is not asking you to be grateful for the abuse.
Okay.
It is not asking you to endorse the harm or say, I'm so glad my family was dysfunctional.
Then what exactly are we being grateful for?
You are practicing gratitude for the sheer fact of your survival and for the opportunity to be the one who breaks the cycle. It's an acknowledgement of reality. I mean, you can't renovate a house if you refuse to admit you live in it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Gratitude, in this specific psychological context, is actually the opposite of denial. When you operate from resentment, you are still being controlled by the past. You are letting the toxic plumbing dictate your emotional state.
Wow, okay.
By finding a sliver of gratitude, even if it's just, I am grateful I have the awareness to see how broken this is, you reclaim your agency. You are accepting the raw material so that you can begin the work.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So it's not thank you for the mold, it's thank you for the flashlight so I can see the mold.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh.
Which naturally leads into the next critical phase, which is discovering and discerning. You take that flashlight into the basement and you trace the pipes. You map your family's values. You look at the recurring stories.
Right.
But discernment is where the real psychological friction happens. Discerning means separating the antique woodwork from the rotting pipes. And that requires immense humility.
Why humility, though?
Because when we start analyzing our family's flaws, it is very easy to fall into supreme arrogance. Like, we judge our parents or grandparents so harshly, totally forgetting that they were likely doing the absolute best they could with the incredibly limited emotional tools they had.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Discerning means evaluating those inherited beliefs with wisdom, separating what promotes human flourishing from what causes harm, but doing so without losing your compassion for the flawed humans who built the house.
Right, they might have installed bad plumbing, but maybe they were trying to build a shelter during a hurricane,
Yeah.
And that brings us to the hardest part of the renovation, which is the healing phase, ripping out the old pipes.
It's messy work.
It is. And the text is very realistic about this. It doesn't treat healing as a weekend DIY project. It says healing is an active, ongoing work. It involves setting boundaries, seeking professional care, actually interrupting those toxic cycles.
And this is where the transformation really happens. You don't just leave a hole where the old pipes used to be. You replace the unhealthy cycles with healthier patterns. You consciously choose a better path.
You preserve the good.
Exactly. You preserve the antique woodwork and you add something entirely new. You basically build an addition to the house.
I really want you, the listener, to internalize this. There is a set of weekly legacy review questions in this material that honestly blew me away. It moves this from high-level theory to like a Tuesday afternoon reality.
They are so practical.
Ask yourself right now, what family value did you honor this week? What unhealthy pattern did you consciously interrupt? If the people who look up to you copied your life this week, exactly as you lived it, what kind of house would they be building?
Those questions force you to realize that you are the bridge. You are not just the end point of your ancestors, you are the starting point for your descendants.
So let's say you're doing the work. You are down in the basement fixing the plumbing. You are polishing the woodwork. You are renovating your internal house. But eventually, you have to open the front door.
Right, you can't stay inside forever.
You step outside and you realize your house isn't sitting on an isolated island. Your pipes are connected to the city's main line. Your individual healing can only go so far if the entire neighborhood's foundation is rotting. We have to scale this up.
And that scales us directly into the realm of culture and society. How does your renovated architecture interact with everyone else's?
This was honestly one of the most fascinating definitions in the entire deep dive. How does this material actually define culture?
It defines culture as the collective expression of millions of individual awareness architectures interacting over time.
Millions of them.
Yeah. Society is not a machine. It isn't a series of gears and levers. It is a living, breathing ecosystem. When healthy individuals create healthy families, those families improve their neighborhoods, those neighborhoods improve their communities, the communities elevate the nation, and the nation advances human civilization. It is a completely inside-out process.
Let's stick with our neighborhood analogy because I
Okay.
think it works so well. A healthy culture is like a well-functioning neighborhood block. But I want to dive into a concept that we hear constantly today, which is diversity.
Oh, this is a big one.
In modern corporate or social environments, diversity is often treated as the ultimate finish line.
Yeah.
Like if you gather a group of people with different backgrounds, different skills, and different perspectives, boom, you have achieved success, you've built a great neighborhood.
But the framework adds a massive critical caveat to that.
Yes, it does. It says diversity of background and skill only becomes a strength when it is united through mutual respect, shared responsibility, and common purpose. Without shared values, cooperation actually becomes incredibly difficult.
Think about the psychology of that for a minute. If you have a neighborhood where everyone has different skills, one person is a great carpenter, another is a brilliant gardener, another is a security expert, that sounds amazing on paper.
A dream team.
But what if they don't share any foundational values? What if the carpenter believes in radical individualism and absolutely refuses to help anyone else? The gardener thinks property lines are an illusion and constantly encroaches on other yards, and the security expert is deeply paranoid and builds a 10-foot wall.
Right, you don't have a flourishing neighborhood. You have a deeply fragmented, high-anxiety HOA from hell.
Exactly.
Diversity without a unifying foundational value, like trust or justice or a commitment to service, it just leads to tribalism. It's not enough to just be different. You have to be different together, pulling in the same ethical direction.
And pulling in the same direction is what actually generates social capital. To explain the mechanics of how communities actually flourish, the framework uses a collective flourishing engine.
Right.
And the very first step in building a healthy culture is belonging and understanding. But the way it describes understanding is so countercultural right now.
It says, listen before attempting to change.
Exactly. And how often do we see the complete opposite? Someone moves into a new neighborhood or a new executive joins a company, and on day one, they're trying to fix everything. They see inefficiencies, they see strange traditions, and they immediately try to tear them down and implement their own system.
Because they think they're the savior.
Right, but they haven't learned the history. They don't know why the fence was built that way. They don't know the past traumas the community survived that led to those specific inefficiencies.
That makes total sense.
If you don't listen and understand the community's history first, your attempts to innovate will just be perceived as arrogance, and you will destroy the most important currency a culture has, which is trust.
Trust is everything. The material is so clear that trust is the actual currency of civilization. If you want to innovate, if you want to collaborate across all those diverse backgrounds we just talked about, you have to build trust.
Yes, absolutely.
And you build trust through consistency, honesty, and accountability.
Right.
Which completely redefines what it means to be a citizen.
Citizenship in this framework has absolutely nothing to do with a passport or a legal status. It is defined by your active contribution to the well-being of the community. Are you just consuming the resources of the neighborhood, or are you repairing the sidewalks?
But here's the rub.
Yeah.
If you're going to repair the sidewalks, if you're going to get the carpenter and the gardener to work together for the good of the block, you need to be able to mobilize people. You need influence.
Oh boy.
And the moment we start talking about influence, we enter the danger zone of leadership.
It is a danger zone because modern society has completely warped the definition of leadership. We constantly equate it with authority. We think leadership is a title, a corner office, fame, or the ability to force people to do what you want through leverage.
Command and control.
Yes. But the architecture of awareness aggressively rejects that. It defines leadership as the responsible stewardship of influence in service of human flourishing. Power is not the objective. The corner office is not the goal. Service is the objective. Influence is simply the tool you use to serve at scale.
But the framework insists that before you can lead anyone else on your neighborhood block, you have to master self-leadership. You have to have your own house in order.
Right.
Like, can you manage your own emotions? Do you keep the promises you make to yourself?
And this is where the real friction of leadership lies. Because self-leadership is exhausting. It is so much easier to try and control other people than it is to control your own impulses, your own ego, your own defensive reactions.
Let me ask you this, listener. It's a profound hypothetical drawn straight from the core of this philosophy. Imagine tomorrow morning you wake up and your title is gone. The badge is deactivated. The words manager, director, or VP just vanish from your email signature.
Oof, gone.
You have zero structural authority over anyone. Would people around you still trust your character? Would they still follow your influence based solely on who you are and how you treat them?
If the answer is no, then you have never actually been a leader. You have just been a boss. You are relying on an artificial system of control, a hierarchy of consequences, rather than a genuine foundation of trust.
Wow.
True leadership is servant leadership. The steward asks, what do the people in my care actually need to flourish? How can I run ahead of them and clear the obstacles out of their path?
There's a massive paradigm shift in the mechanics of this leadership engine. It happens right around the stage of empowering others. Because most insecure managers, the ones relying on the title, they want followers.
Of course they do. Followers stroke the ego. Followers make you feel indispensable. If your team can't function without you, it validates your self-importance.
Right. But this framework explicitly states that the ultimate goal of a leader is not to create followers. The goal is to develop more leaders.
Which is terrifying for the ego. You are actively trying to make yourself obsolete. You are equipping your people with the knowledge, the autonomy, and the responsibility to function brilliantly without you. You are replacing their dependency with their own capability.
Think about how rare that is in the corporate world, or, even in politics. A true leader wants people who can think independently and lead ethically. Because leadership is temporary. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much influence you wield, eventually you are going to step down, you are going to retire, or you are going to pass away. Leadership ends. But stewardship is eternal.
That distinction between leadership and stewardship is so profound. Stewardship means recognizing that you don't actually own the team, the resources, or the company. They are entrusted to you for a brief window of time, and your only job is to leave them in a structurally sounder, healthier condition than when you received them.
It's the neighborhood block again. You don't own the street, you are just stewarding it while you live there. So if leadership is just influence used for service, what is the fuel? Why do we do this? What stops us from just hoarding power the moment we get a little bit of influence?
We need a guiding principle.
Exactly. This brings us to what the framework calls the ethical summit, the absolute highest operating principle guiding this entire architecture.
We reach the concept of love and compassion. Now, the material makes a very bold, uncompromising claim here. It states that knowledge without love is merely arrogance. Power without love is simply oppression. The defining principle of a highly evolved human architecture is that love is the highest form of awareness expressed through action.
We really need to pause and define love here, because in our culture, love is usually reduced to a feeling. It's a romantic emotion or just a warm, fuzzy sentiment. But the text treats it like an architectural law of physics.
Yes, in this context, love is not an emotion you fall into or out of. It is an intentional, rigorous commitment to seek the flourishing and the dignity of others. It is an operational principle. And the material is incredibly careful to distinguish between mere awareness and actual compassion.
Let's unpack that, because in the digital age, we confuse awareness with compassion all the time. Awareness is just observing suffering. You are scrolling on your phone, you see a horrific news story about a tragedy halfway across the world, or even in your own city.
Yeah, it happens every day.
You feel a pang of sadness.
Yeah.
You think, wow, that is terrible. You maybe leave a sad face emoji, and then you scroll to a video of a cat.
You are highly aware. You have all the data about the suffering, but you are completely detached. You haven't actually done anything.
Right. Compassion, on the other hand, acts. Compassion is awareness that has been weaponized into service. It is taking the data of suffering and combining it with the absolute necessity to help.
The mechanics of how compassion operates in this framework move from perceiving the need to understanding it without judgment and then responding practically. It's about empowering others rather than creating dependence. You aren't swooping in to be the hero who fixes everything. You are coming alongside people to strengthen them.
And the framework zeroes in on two specific expressions of this: generosity and forgiveness. I want to look at generosity first, because, again, we usually equate this with writing a check. But the material pushes it so much further. Generosity is the giving of your resources, yes, but it is also the giving of your knowledge, your time, your patience, and your presence.
Presence is perhaps the rarest commodity today.
Exactly. In a world where everyone is perpetually distracted, where every conversation is interrupted by a notification, sometimes the most profound act of generosity you can offer another human being is your undivided attention. Looking them in the eye and saying, "You are the only thing that matters in this moment." That is compassion in action.
And then there is the mechanism of forgiveness. This is often the most misunderstood component of compassion.
Let's dive deep into this, because people weaponize forgiveness all the time. You hear it in toxic family dynamics or abusive relationships. Someone says, if you really love me, you'd forgive me and let me back into your life exactly as things were before. They equate forgiveness with a lack of consequences.
Which the framework explicitly denies. The nuance here is brilliant. It states that forgiveness is essential because it allows love to continue where pain might otherwise completely destroy the foundation of the relationship. However, forgiveness does not automatically remove the consequences of the action, nor does it require immediate reconciliation.
Let's bring back the house analogy.
Yeah.
Let's say someone comes into your beautifully renovated historic house and they take a sledgehammer to your antique woodwork. Forgiving them does not mean you hand them back the sledgehammer and say, have at it again.
Exactly. Forgiveness is an internal process. It is about releasing your own resentment. It's about refusing to let the bitterness rot the foundation of your own architecture. You forgive them so that the hatred doesn't consume your internal life. But reconciliation requires trust. If they haven't rebuilt the trust, you don't let them back in the house.
You can fully forgive someone and simultaneously say, you are no longer allowed on my property. Forgiveness creates the possibility of healing for yourself. It does not give the other person a free pass to continue causing harm. It is compassion balanced perfectly with wisdom and healthy boundaries.
When you begin to operate at this level, where your influence is used for service, where your awareness translates into compassionate action, and where you protect your architecture while still loving others, a massive psychological shift occurs.
This is the turning point of a human life. For decades, the primary question driving your existence is, what do I want from life? What career do I want? What partner do I want? What experiences do I want to extract from the world? But eventually, as this architecture matures, the question flips. It becomes, what does life invite me to give?
And when your entire life transitions into an enduring gift, you cross the threshold into legacy.
Which brings us to the master integrator. The concept of legacy. We have so many misconceptions about this word. People think legacy means having your name etched into the side of a hospital wing, or amassing a massive fortune to leave in a trust fund, or achieving historical fame. Like legacy is just a statue in a park covered in pigeon droppings.
The architecture of awareness completely dismantles that view. It redefines legacy not as a monument, but as the enduring influence of your life upon people, communities, and knowledge. And the most critical point, legacy is not an event that happens at your funeral. Legacy is being constructed right now, today, in the mundane choices of a Tuesday afternoon.
Life is architecture. Every single daily decision you make is laying a stone. Every habit you reinforce is building a wall. Every relationship you nurture opens up a new room. So if your life ended today, if you laid your final stone right now, look at the structure you have already built. Is it a place where other people can take shelter? Is it a place of warmth, safety, and wisdom? Or have you built a fortress of isolation with the drawbridge pulled up, surrounded by a moat of your own ego?
The material categorizes this into 5 distinct forms of legacy that everyone leaves, intentionally or not. There is your personal legacy, which is the imprint of your character and integrity. There's the family legacy, the values, and the healthy or unhealthy traditions you pass down.
Then there is your professional legacy. This isn't just what you achieved at work. It is the knowledge you shared, the mentorship you provided, and the ethical standards you modeled for your colleagues. Fourth is your community legacy, how you improved the neighborhood block. And finally, your spiritual legacy, which the framework defines broadly as the hope, the compassion, and the sense of broader meaning you inspired in others.
And tying all of this together is the principle of multiplication. This is the secret engine of legacy. Your greatest contribution to humanity is rarely the physical actions you take yourself. Your true legacy is what others continue doing because of you.
It is the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Ideas multiply. Character multiplies. Courage multiplies. When you invest in people, you are planting seeds in a garden you will never see fully bloom. The framework explicitly states that people are the ultimate legacy, not books, not buildings, not companies. The human beings whose lives were elevated because your architecture interacted with theirs.
That is how you intentionally construct a legacy. You envision the influence you want to leave. You align your daily mundane habits with those deep values to close the gap between your intentions and your actions, and you invest heavily in mentoring and empowering others. You design systems and cultures that will continue creating good long after you have stepped away.
You hand over the keys to the house, and you hand over the blueprints, so the next generation knows how to maintain the plumbing and polish the woodwork. You finish life, not by counting what you kept, but with deep gratitude for what you were able to give away.
But the journey doesn't end there. Everything we have discussed so far has been focused on your architecture, your family, your community, your legacy. But the final dimension of this material breaks the boundaries of individual existence completely. We enter the realm of human civilization itself.
The infinite human chain. This is where the framework fundamentally alters our relationship with time. There's a line in this section that I have not stopped thinking about since I read it. It says, "We do not inherit the future from those who came before us. We borrow it from those who will come after us."
Borrowing the future, that changes every calculation. If you are borrowing something, you have a fiduciary duty to return it in good condition. We are stewards across time.
This is the infinite human chain. Every generation receives the collective wisdom and trauma of the past. They learn from it, they hopefully improve it, they create new innovations, they teach the next generation, and they pass it forward. The material is challenging us to stop thinking in terms of fiscal quarters or election cycles, or even our own lifespan. It is asking us to think in terms of 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years.
Which raises existential questions for our current era. We live in a time of explosive technological acceleration. Technology grows exponentially, but human wisdom does not automatically stale with it. In fact, our wisdom often lags dangerously behind our capabilities.
It's the crisis of our age. We're basically handing sledgehammers to toddlers.
Exactly. The framework insists that progress must be tethered to ethics. Every time we innovate, we must ask, should we build this just because we can? Who truly benefits? Who might be marginalized or harmed? How does this alter the structural integrity of the human chain for the generation 100 years from now? Without profound ethical stewardship, technological progress is just highly efficient destruction.
And navigating that requires something that feels in very short supply these days: hope. The material calls hope civilization's greatest investment. And I have to be honest, when I first read that, my cynical modern brain pushed back hard.
It sounds naive, doesn't it?
It does. You turn on the news, you see geopolitical conflict, environmental degradation, deep cultural polarization, institutional corruption. The basement of humanity is flooding on a global scale. How do you maintain hope in the face of all that? Why does this philosophical framework treat hope almost like a currency?
Because without hope, the future literally cannot be built. If you succumb to cynicism, you do nothing. Cynicism is the easiest, most intellectually lazy position a person can take, because it requires absolutely no action. If the world is doomed, you don't have to fix the plumbing. You don't have to plant a tree. You don't have to mentor a child.
Cynicism is just an excuse to abdicate responsibility.
Precisely. But hope is incredibly difficult. Hope is a radical action. It requires you to operate as if your choices fundamentally matter to a future you will never live to see. Hope is what inspires a scientist to search for a cure. It is what inspires a teacher to pour their soul into a struggling student. It is what inspires communities to rebuild after a disaster. Hope is the ultimate act of defiance against despair.
It is the belief that the architecture can hold. The ultimate mission of humanity, as laid out in this culmination of the framework, is an ongoing project. We are tasked with preserving what is timeless, truth, human dignity, the pursuit of beauty. We are tasked with innovating solutions to emerging challenges, and ultimately we are tasked with continually increasing the sum total of wisdom, love, justice, and flourishing on this planet, while remaining faithful stewards of the natural world that sustains us.
It brings the entire architecture of awareness full circle. Think about where we started. We began by looking inward, understanding our own biological and familial inheritance down in the basement. Then we moved outward into our neighborhoods, building trust and shared culture. We redefined leadership from hoarding power to stewarding influence. We elevated compassion from a feeling to the highest form of operational awareness. And finally, we realized that our personal legacy is just one tiny, vital link in the eternal stewardship of human civilization. The growth you achieve as an individual is ultimately returned as a gift to future generations.
What an absolute masterpiece of a journey. We have taken the house down to the studs, and we've rebuilt it into a shelter for the future. We've connected it to the grid of humanity.
It provides a profound, actionable blueprint for a deeply meaningful life. And I can speak directly to you, the listener, for a moment. Look closely at your immediate surroundings today. Look at the people in your home. Look at your colleagues in your workplace. Look at the literal streets of your neighborhood. The future isn't some abstract concept waiting out there in the distance. The future already exists, in seed form, inside the choices you are making right now. You are the bridge between the ancestors you never knew and the descendants you will never meet.
You are the bridge. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. We spend so much time and energy thinking about what we want to add to that infinite human chain. We want to add a successful business, a brilliant book, a scientific discovery, a financial empire. We want to leave our mark by building something new.
Which is a noble pursuit, of course.
It is. But think about the plumbing in that basement again. What if the most powerful, most enduring part of your legacy is actually what you choose to subtract?
That is a staggering perspective shift.
Think about it deeply. What if the cycles of generational trauma that you actively choose not to pass down? What if the toxic habits you refuse to teach your children? What if the prejudices you painfully rip out of your own mind so they don't infect your neighborhood? What if those subtractions end up being the quietest yet most monumental gift you ever give to the future of civilization? Sometimes the absolute greatest thing you can leave behind is the pain that finally stopped with you.
A profound truth to carry forward as we build.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the architecture of a meaningful life. Until next time, keep fixing the plumbing, keep polishing the woodwork, and keep building a future worth borrowing.